The pulse hits your wrist before your eyes are open, not an alarm. Alarms are for people with schedules. This is a contract offer. 90 seconds to accept before the algorithm moves to the next candidate. You blink. The retinal display, you can't afford to upgrade, flickers once and projects a number. $31.40. That's the offer. 3 hours of data tagging work, routed from a firm in Bangalore you'll never see the name of. You accept. Obviously, you accept. Welcome to Tuesday, 2041. By the end of this video, you'll be able to identify which of 3 paths your career is actually on right now, and what you can do in the next 12 months before the choice gets made for you. For most of the 20th century, the deal was simple. You showed up. You traded hours for stability. The 9-to-5 wasn't just a schedule. It was a contract between you and society. Health insurance, a pension, a reason to get dressed. That contract is being rewritten, not in a boardroom, not by a vote, by a software update that lands quietly on a Tuesday and changes what your job is before you finish your coffee. Oxford University researchers spent years analyzing 702 occupations, task by task. Their conclusion: roughly 47% of U.S. jobs contain tasks that are technically automatable with technology that already exists. That doesn't mean 47% of workers get fired tomorrow. It means nearly half the workforce has significant parts of their job that a machine can already do. Goldman Sachs later put a global number on the broader impact. Potentially 300 million full-time positions affected worldwide, not erased, but fundamentally changed, as AI spreads across white-collar work. Think of it less like a wave and more like a tide. It doesn't announce itself. It just rises. Call it whatever you want. This is just what the incentives produce. Cue capitalism, the rating economy, the permanent audition. The label doesn't matter. The mechanism does. Your value isn't determined by skill, tenure, or loyalty, but by your position in a ranked list that refreshes every 60 seconds. The mechanism isn't new. The scale is. Those aren't predictions of collapse. They're measurements of exposure. But here's what the spreadsheets don't show you. What happens on the other side of that number. What it looks like at 6 a.m. when the pulse on your wrist is the only thing deciding whether you eat this week. That's what we're here to find out. There is one present. There are 3 possible futures. Not because we're guessing, because that's how systems work. Markets, labor policies, and political incentives are not random. They follow pressure. And the same pressures, depending on the choices made by governments, companies, and people like you and me in the next 10 to 15 years, lead to radically different worlds by 2040. We call it the fork. Path 1. Inertia. The world where nothing significant changes. Current trends continue unchecked. Path 2. Adaptation. The world where the transition is managed, not perfect, but survivable, maybe even better. Path 3. Fracture. The world where the failures stack up, where the safety nets fail before anyone notices they were already torn. Same starting point. 3 very different places to land. By 2040, the fork is visible. By 2041, you're living inside it. Let's begin where we are right now. Marcus wakes up at 5:47 a.m., not because he wants to, because the task queue refreshes at 6, and if he's not logged in, he loses position to the 340 other contractors in his tier who are also awake, also waiting, also watching the same counter. He checks his platform balance, $847. Rent is $960. He has 11 days. He opens 3 task apps simultaneously. The trick is to spread your risk across platforms. If one algorithm decides you've dropped in rating, the others might not know yet. He learned this from a forum post. Nobody taught him. No onboarding, no HR department, just a thread from 2034 that someone else figured out the hard way. He puts on a hoodie. The apartment doesn't have climate control. That's a premium add-on in this building. He works anyway. The screen is bright. The apartment is cold. The coffee is instant. And he drinks it standing up because sitting down makes him feel like he's supposed to be somewhere else. Marcus takes the train at 8:15. Not to a job, exactly. To a transition hub. A concept that came out of a 2031 labor policy package that most people said would never pass. It did. Barely. And here it is. His morning starts with a 1-hour skills session. Today, applied data interpretation for logistics and networks, not because he chose it, because his profile assessment said his existing pattern recognition skills from his old warehouse job transfer more cleanly to this than anything else. The algorithm isn't wrong. He's actually good at it. He gets a monthly stipend while he retrains. It's not generous, $1,400, and the rent in this district is $1,100. The stipend renewal requires a quarterly review, and the woman running his cohort, Amara, former supply chain manager, retrained herself 2 years ago, told him last week that 3 people in the previous group lost theirs for missing attendance. He hasn't missed a session. He doesn't plan to. There's real coffee at the hub. He drinks it sitting down at a communal table with 8 other people. A laid-off paralegal, a former truck dispatcher, a woman who ran a small accounting firm for 15 years before her clients started using software that did everything she did, faster. They don't talk about their old jobs much. There's an unspoken rule. Everyone's trying to face forward. It doesn't feel like victory, but it doesn't feel like falling either. Marcus doesn't have a morning routine anymore. Routines require a structure to attach to. He had a job in accounts receivable, 12 years, then 18 months of retraining programs that were defunded after a budget crisis, before any of them got him anywhere. The platform economy was there as a fallback, but by 2039, the platforms had flooded with supply. Too many people, too few tasks, rates collapsing in real time like a stock market that only goes one direction. Today he's making calls for his brother-in-law's landscaping business, the one physical service that's still hard to automate when the soil is uneven and the clients keep changing their minds. Cash in hand. It doesn't show up on his credit record, which is both useful and meaningless, because there's nothing left to protect on his credit record anyway. His phone battery is at 14%. He doesn't have a charger that works. He drives to the library at 9:30 to use theirs. The library is the most functional public institution left in this zip code, and everyone knows it. Just one more month like this, he thinks, loading up the job boards for the 4th time this week. He knows it's not true. He's been thinking it for 8 months, 3 mornings, same city, same Tuesday. Marcus 1 wakes up to a notification. Rating dropped 0.2. No explanation. No appeal. Just a number that determines if tomorrow he works. Marcus 2 wakes up to a message from a client he actually likes. No rush. No rating. Just work that came because of who he is, not where he's ranked. Marcus 3 wakes up to an empty inbox. Not because there's no work, because the work went to someone cheaper, someone faster. Someone who hasn't realized yet that cheap and fast is a trap. The question isn't which one feels more realistic. The question is which one you're closer to. Right now. Here's how to know. Look at how your work finds you. If it comes through a queue, if your income is a number in someone else's system, if you're paying for tools just to stay eligible, and if the only way up is doing more, not becoming more, then you're already closer to Marcus 1. You just haven't admitted it yet. If there's a bridge, a credential in progress, a cohort, someone actively training you, you're closer to Marcus 2, even if it doesn't pay as much. Yet. Now, here's the part that actually matters. How does each version of Marcus pay his bills? In Path 1, Q capitalism didn't stay in the gig economy. It became the economy, not the scrappy side hustle version of 2024, but a mature stratified system with its own class structure. At the top, the algorithm fluent, people who learn to game ratings, build reputation scores across platforms, stack micro contracts into something resembling a living wage. They're fine, maybe even thriving. Marcus opens his earnings dashboard. Last month, $1,840. His platform fee was $290. 15% off the top. Automatically deducted, non-negotiable. His equipment costs, the headset, the subscription to the task verification software that keeps his rating above the threshold for premium jobs, another $140. What he actually keeps, $1,410. Rent is $960. That leaves $450 for everything else. In the middle of the system, the permanently temporary, the floaters, not sinking, not swimming. The World Economic Forum projected that 92 million jobs would disappear by 2030 without proportional replacement in accessible income structures. In Path 1, nobody found that replacement. Everyone assumed someone else was working on it. At the bottom, the disconnected. People who aged out of the platform's preference for speed, didn't have the equipment, or got a disability rating that knocked them out of premium task allocation. For them, Q capitalism has an invisible floor. Most people don't notice it until they hit it. In Path 2, the universal basic income debate didn't get resolved cleanly, but it got replaced by something more targeted. Not a check for everyone, but a layered support structure, retraining stipends, housing credits tied to transition periods, a reformed social insurance system that treated the platform economy as a legitimate employment category rather than a tax loophole. It was messy. It was politically expensive. Several countries tried and partially failed before finding versions that worked. Finland's updated model from 2033 became the most cited case study. Picture the conversation that made it happen. A city budget director. 2 spreadsheets open side by side. Left column, annual cost per person running a transition hub. Right column, annual cost per person cycling through emergency healthcare, housing assistance, and the criminal justice system after a failed labor market transition. The numbers on the right were larger. That was the argument. Not ideology, arithmetic. Marcus in Path 2 earns, in a typical month, about $2,800 across his stipend, part-time platform work, and an early contract in his new field. He's not comfortable, but he can see a direction. In Path 3, the economy still grows. That's the part that surprises people who haven't looked at the data. GDP keeps climbing in 2040. Corporate profits are up. AI productivity is real. The aggregate numbers look fine from a distance. The problem is that the numbers stopped being connected to the people a long time ago. Goldman Sachs estimated that widespread AI adoption could boost labor productivity by roughly 15%. In Path 3, that gain happened. The gains just didn't flow down. They compounded at the top, while the bottom third of earners saw their real purchasing power fall for the 6th consecutive year. Marcus in Path 3 uses a bartering app 3 times a week. He fixes his neighbor's car. She gives him 2 days of grocery credit. This is not a sustainable system. It's also not technically illegal. It's just what happens when the formal economy stops reaching everyone. 3 economic realities. And in each one, Marcus still needs to fill the hours between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. What happens in that window turns out to be the most revealing difference between these worlds, and the most uncomfortable to sit with. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus finishes his third task block of the day. He's earned $94. He's been staring at a screen for 6 hours, and his lower back hurts in the specific way that comes from a chair that wasn't designed for this. He should take a break. He doesn't. The task queue is open, and if he doesn't fill this afternoon window, tomorrow's gap gets wider. There's no supervisor telling him to overwork. There doesn't need to be. Q capitalism tells him. His social life happens in comment sections, not because he's lonely in some cartoonish way. He has connections, some of them real, but the shared experience of a workplace, the accidental community of people stuck in the same elevator, the colleague you didn't choose, but somehow ended up trusting, that's gone. In its place, feeds curated to keep him engaged. They're very good at that. They are not good for very much else. By 5 p.m., he realizes he can't remember the last time he left the apartment for something that wasn't a grocery run. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus takes a 40-minute walk. This isn't a luxury. The Hub's health program subsidizes it because the data was persuasive enough to make it into policy. Active workers in transition, complete retraining at significantly higher rates. Someone ran the numbers, and the numbers won the argument. His social landscape looks different too. The transition cohort became, unexpectedly, the tightest community he's had since his first job. Not because they chose each other, because they're all in the same strange in-between space. Too old to pretend the old world is coming back. Too early to know what the new one actually looks like. That shared uncertainty became a kind of glue. He calls his mother at 4 o'clock, not because anything is wrong, because he has time to. She notices the difference. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus is in a parking lot outside a closed sporting goods store that became, sometime around 2037, an informal employment exchange. Not official, not on any app, just a place where people show up with skills to offer or work to be done, and transactions happen in cash or trade. A social worker comes on Thursdays. The county still has a social services department, but it's running at 60% of its 2028 budget, and the caseloads are impossible. The social worker knows it. The people in the parking lot know it. Nobody's pretending the system is working. Marcus isn't in crisis, in the dramatic sense. He's in the slow kind, the kind that doesn't make news because it doesn't happen all at once. A small thing goes wrong, then another. Then the margin that used to absorb small things is gone, and there's no margin left, and the next small thing tips everything. He drives home at 5:30. The gas light has been on for 2 days. He has $23 and won't get paid for the landscaping until Friday. He does the math in his head, the way he does every night. Just 1 more month. He thinks again. He stopped believing it around month 4. He thinks it anyway. It's the only thing left that costs nothing. It comes out the same way it always does. Barely. 3 afternoons. The gap between them isn't talent. It isn't effort. Every version of Marcus works as hard as the conditions let him. The gap is the decade of decisions between now and 2040. Which brings us to the only question that actually matters. The honest answer is that we're somewhere between Path 1 and Path 2, leaning toward the wrong direction in most of the places that matter. The World Economic Forum projects that by 2030, around 170 million new jobs will emerge globally, but 92 million existing ones will disappear. Net positive on paper. Catastrophic in practice if the people losing the jobs aren't the same people getting the new ones, which, historically, they rarely are without significant intervention. Marcus 1 doesn't have clients. He has tasks. One ends, another appears. His income isn't what he earns. It's what he's allowed to do next, and the permission expires daily. Marcus 2 has clients, real ones, people who know his name, his voice, his work. His income isn't a queue, it's relationships. Marcus 3, He has neither. No queue, no relationships, just the memory of when he used to have one of them. So here's what no one tells you. The path you're on right now isn't determined by your talent. It's determined by the structure through which your work finds you. And structures can be changed, but only before they harden. So here's the diagnostic. 4 signals. Count how many are true for you right now. 1. Your income varies week to week depending on output, ratings, or client decisions you don't control. 2. You are evaluated continuously by an algorithm, a score, a review system, rather than by someone who actually knows your work. 3. You personally pay for the tools you need to do your job, software, subscriptions, equipment, as a condition of staying employable. 4. You have no visible path of progression in your current situation. Not slow progression, no path at all. 3 or 4. You're closer to path 1 than you probably want to admit. 2. You're in the in-between, which is exactly where the decisions of the next 10 years matter most. 1 or 0. You still have runway. Don't waste it. Drop your number in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where most people land. The skills that outlast the rating economy are the ones no system can score. Judgment under ambiguity, trust building, physical presence, the ability to work in situations without a defined outcome. 3 moves for this month. Map which parts of your job a machine already does faster. Find one person outside your field and ask them what they actually do all day. And build something, anything, that exists outside a platform's terms of service. That's it. Not a revolution, a direction. That gap between what the data says and what it means for an actual person in an actual apartment at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday is why this channel exists. Next week, we go deeper, because if salaries are ending and all the data says they are, then we need to answer the question no one's asking yet. How will you buy food when the paycheck disappears? Not how you'll earn money, how you'll eat. Those used to be the same question. They won't be for much longer. Subscribe, because next week, we're following the money all the way down to the grocery store. And what we find there changes everything. The pulse on your wrist is already there. You've been feeling it for a while now. The question is, what you do with the next 90 seconds. Pause. 2 seconds. This is not a prediction. This is a narrative visualization based on documented trends from Goldman Sachs, economics research, the Oxford Martin School, and the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025. The scenarios are tools for thinking, not maps of what must happen. What actually happens depends, in part, on what we decide to do next.